also 4916 Shoreview Court. I have something here that I'd like you all to see. We have noise pollution, but we don't have light pollution. I'd like everyone to take this, pass it along, and take a look.
If you can pass it to the clerk.
Yes.
And I want a motion to accept that into for council minutes, if we're going to look at it.
Yeah.
Motion to put in the minutes, please.
Let us.
Yeah, well, I can bring it over to you.
No, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what it is at 8211 Haywood Lane, they have some extremely bright, I call them stadium lights. They've actually tipped them down, but if you look at the picture on certain nights, the way the water will and the wind will blow, the water acts like a mirror and amplifies it and magnifies it. That picture is taken all the way across the bayou. That's from one extreme end to the other. That was taken on my neighbor's backyard. So you get an idea what that's like. So I was hoping that maybe we could do something with light pollution when it's blinding. That's one of the things. The other thing is Miller's Bayou is a recreational area, and you'll see kids jet skiing, getting pulled by a tube and so forth. But last month, actually up to a couple of weeks ago, there were 32 crab traps there all over the place. And I was hoping that maybe we could make some rules or so forth, because to maybe they have the whole Gulf. Why destroy that where everyone's kind of do this and dodging, and I'm thinking someone's going to get hurt on that. So I was thinking if you're aware of it, if there's something that could be done, would be great. And those are just my two comments for tonight. Everything else, I'm happy with everything that you people do and happy to be part of this. So thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
The next person I'd like to invite is Danny Fields. Welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and my address is going to be 8114 Leo Kidd Avenue, and the zip area is 34668. And so Ashley, I give her, or Leonard and them did a copy of this to where we're going to be having the backpack stuff for the kids. So it was in your mailbox, but I just wanted to thank you guys for partnering with us. Somebody cares to do this, and we are so grateful. And you know, the police, and they're going to be there. It just helps the community so much. The little kids, because I do deal with a lot of the kids and stuff through my neighborhoods and through ministry, and they look up to the police and the fire department. So that is so important to have City Hall, have Port Richey here in that arena to encourage and show the public that we are a great, not only state, but a city. And we got a great team, that mayor here, and working together. And so I also want to tell you, we will be praying and giving food out and water and just fellowshipping together and getting to know one another. I hope you can make it to that. That will be at the Waterfront Park, Old Post Road. That will be on July the 30th back at our church, Light of the World Tabernacle, which is 8114 Leo Kidd Avenue there. On July the 20th, we're going to have a backpack stuffing party where we put all the backpacks together with all the school supplies in it for the kids. And we have pizza. We get to work with other churches, other leaders in the community, and then we end up in the park. And I mean, this is just a great thing. And I'm so grateful for you and for Tom and for the police and the fire department. And so I'll just cut it short. I mean, I like to give honor where honor is due. And so even you here, the man here was talking about how great the work you're doing. And you do deal with these subjects that come up. And we see so much improvement on the roads and the water and the sewer, and these issues come up that you have to make these tough decisions on. But you got a good team that work together. And so I just want to thank you.
The next person that signed up is Pat Rogers. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard.
And I just want to thank Public Works yet again. They're always out there working hard. They trimmed the palm front so you can see the yield sign now. But they're doing a great job. And I hope the word gets passed on to them that we appreciate them. And also, I agree with the light pollution issue, because there are places that on the river, there's a house that I'm just so glad I'm not real close to it. It looks like it could be a hotel or motel. It's so lit up, but it's on that point just beyond the American Marina. So it does, the light doesn't affect me, but it would if I lived next door.
Thank you. That's all that signed up from the general public on this topic. I see someone else has signed up, Mr. Mueller. Did you want to reserve your 3 minutes for later, or did you want to speak now?
I believe I signed up after the city manager.
After we go. Okay.
After the city manager's.
Understood. At this time, I'm going to invite Mr. Duke to speak then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works has completed the cleanup following the fireworks. Wanted to bring you up to date on the two Public Works vehicles that are on order. There's 3 on order. The two pickup trucks have had VINs issued by the manufacturer, which means they are on the line. They're being built. The crane truck has not had a VIN issued. None of them obviously have delivery dates, but at least the 2 pickup trucks are on the line now. The new crane that you approved several weeks ago has been installed on the truck. It's back in service and lifting, and that's a good thing. Public Works and Utilities have begun prep work on the Riverview and Gulf lift station that you approved several weeks ago. And if you didn't have a chance, take a look at your new ground penetrating radar. It's out in the front lobby. Looks like an electric lawnmower to me, but Public Works assures me that it's doing what we expect it to do. So just wanted you to see what you paid for, and thank you for supporting the needs in Public Works. I had a chance to meet with a representative from Pasco County EDC last week. She wanted to discuss opportunities for county EDC and the city to work together on projects, nothing specific, but she and I will meet again next Friday and maybe fine tune some of those ideas, but moving forward with that relationship. Last Thursday, we finished the fireworks planning meeting. Friday, I had a walkthrough with staff at the site, and hopefully all of you had an opportunity to enjoy the show on Saturday. Really want to say thanks to all the department heads and the personnel, because those are the folks that worked really hard to make that happen. A lot of stuff that those of you who enjoyed the fireworks didn't know took place, but they spent a lot of time and energy. Everything from having somebody from the fire department there a day ahead of time to supervise the loading of the fireworks. The Public Works guys were out there painting and cleaning and getting things tuned up. Fire department put together the incident action plan. PD and Public Works contributed to that. You all probably didn't see that, but that was a document about that thick to try to cover every aspect of what are we doing? What are we doing if something happens? What are we doing if something goes wrong? And so I want to thank the fire department for putting that together, and then other departments for contributing to that. I've asked my department heads to put together a department after action report. We didn't have any incidents. As far as we could tell, everything went smoothly, but even when everything goes right, there's some lessons to be learned. So I'm getting those after action reports in. They're due by Friday. Once I have all the department head AERs, then I'll put together a citywide AER and get that back to you. So fortunately, we didn't have any significant problems, but we'll take a look at what we did, see whether it worked well for us. And in the event we want to do fireworks again, we'll have those lessons learned to draw. Just so you know, again, this is something behind the scenes, but we've just finished our quarterly department head budget meetings, and that's why I've met with each department head, gone over the department revenues and expenditures, where we are in the budget. appreciate Rachel's assistance with that. She has to sit in on those meetings and keep us all on the straight and narrow. But in general, we're about where we expect to be, with one exception, and this doesn't come as a surprise to you, but virtually every line item we have for fuel is at or near fully expended. And with fuel prices doubling in the last 6 to 8 months or 1 year, we're going to have to do some shuffling. I've asked department heads to take a look at operations, and I know they're making adjustments to try to save on fuel. And we'll move money from other lines, but there'll be places we don't spend money because we're spending $4.50, $5 or more for diesel fuel, 4.5 or 5 for regular. So that was the one thing that jumped out at us in every department. Everybody is not burning up any more fuel than they typically do, but the price has doubled. So it's something we'll manage through the rest of the year, barring calamities, unexpected. Like I said, revenue and expenditures are about on track where we expected when we budgeted. So didn't come up with anything that's going to keep Rachel and I awake at night. So if we can stay on track, we look good for end of the year. Just an update on our smoke test. As I've reported before, we sent out 42 letters. We have 26 of those leaks fixed, and they've been fixed and inspected. We sent out another 16 door hanger reminders. So there's some property owners that haven't responded to the first notice, but we'll give them another reminder or two and hopefully get them to come into compliance. So that's making progress. As soon as we've got that wrapped up, we'll start looking at the next geographic area to do smoke testing and start plugging more holes. So appreciate Public Works and Building Department, Code Enforcement. They've been working hard on this to try to literally get those leaks plugged and make sure our system works the way it was intended, not taking in rainwater. Last item, I've posted a position announcement for a part-time building official that is out there, and we're in the process of taking applications. We have a building official that works as a contractor, but it's to the point where we need more building official time, and we pay a lot more for a contractor, and so the demand is there to move from contractor to, at the very least, a part-time employee. We won't spend any more money with a part-time 32-hour-a-week employee than we do paying for 16 hours now with a contractor. So there's a tipping point where, does it make sense to go to an employee? And we're at that point. There's a number of projects that if they come in, it'll keep even a part-time building official very busy. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
Thank you. I want to turn it over to the board, to council, and I want to start with Councilman Kinsella.
First, I wanted to thank Mr. Dude and the departments that were involved in cleaning up the east side of Washington Street, that construction area. What an improvement. I assure you, those living on the west side, they probably appreciate it even more so. Just to pass on the heading southbound of Washington, right there, River Golf, there's a pedestrian crossing sign that is tipping quite a bit to the west. I think that could be straightened. Got some great comments on the fireworks. So the city should be very, very proud of the fireworks. One complaint: they weren't high enough. So there may have been some regulations involved. I don't know, but I've heard one complaint that my neighborhood, they wish they could have seen a little bit higher to really enjoy it. So I just want to share that. But otherwise, what a great Saturday watching, and made me very, very proud. And so thank all those who worked and prepared that. And it was great. That's all I have.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Councilman McCleary. I know he's here virtually. You still there?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, again, I'd like to echo what Tom said. I got numerous compliments from citizens around the city, really, just saying how much they appreciated the fireworks, how good of a job everything was done, how organized the park was, how good the park looks. So really, just congratulations to everyone involved. That it really was a spectacular event and something that really made our citizens proud and happy to be part of the city. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I was going to mirror that. Really, our social services has stepped up, fire, the police department, and the planning. And one of the things that was kind of overlooked, I drove by the park beforehand, and the park was beautiful. It was well grown, maintained. Everything was cut back like it should. So I wanted to thank the folks working on the parks in the city. And same feedback. The citizens loved the fireworks. I think it was one of the better things we do for not only our citizens, but I know we had people from all over that came to watch. The other thing I wanted to thank the city is I know I had the same concerns with the yield sign. I thought it was a safety issue that Ms. Rogers brought up earlier, and I noticed that was taken care of, so thank you for that. Outside of that, the only other question that I had is I know that we've expended in the budget our money that we had budgeted or set aside for fuel in each department, and whether or not we can look at using ARPA funds so we don't go over budget on that item to defray some of those costs. And I just wanted to make that as a suggestion and see what the rules are on maybe using just a little bit of ARPA funds to offset that cost so we don't go over budget on that item.
Yeah, it would be an allowable expense. I think as a secondary measure, we can do that. We'll look internally and see if there's savings or moving money else from other lines. But ARPA isn't an acceptable expenditure.
Okay. And that was just one of the things I wanted to bring up. Other than that, that's all I had, and I wanted to pass it to Councilwoman Rodriguez.
I have a few things. I was in the park for the fireworks, and the utilities guys did a wonderful job. It looked great. Huge fire and police presence there. The fire department was towards where the fireworks were put off, and they were wonderful. A lot of police there really helped. There were a lot of people. Everybody was sitting on the lawn on blankets and lawn chairs. Everybody was very well. The kids were all over the place. It was great, and the police were really wonderful in getting everybody out of the park in a very timely manner. So everybody did a wonderful job. It was beautiful. So thank you for everybody in the city that pulled that off. That was great. The CIC, a couple of things came up with the CIC. Can I bring that up now? Or am I going to wait for boards and committees?
That's up to you. If you want to bring it now, we can address it now. Sure.
Sidewalks over like by Bay Boulevard, they're telling me that they're broken and cracked, and it's from the Duke Energy guys digging it with their equipment on there. I don't know if that's an accurate statement or not, but people who are using the sidewalk and use them all the time, where they weren't broken before Duke Energy came in, now they're broken and they're having difficulties maneuvering those sidewalks. So we might want to check into that, if that would be possible.
Will do.
Thank you. And another thing is we talked about parking, code enforcement for parking, boats, trailers, cars, etc. Is that something that we could review here? Could we bring that to the council and have us look at that and then review that for accuracy, updating if, whatever is appropriate?
I'll put it on next.
For clarification, what do you mean by review it?
Can we look? Can we look at the code and see, is it okay the way it is, or do we need to change it? Is it something that we want to change? Like no boat trailers, or you can't park in the grass, or you can park in the grass. There was questions about all that.
Okay.
So,
that's an item that I think it's going to be by consensus if we want to address it. So I know you want to address it.
yes.
Mr. McClary, do you want to readdress?
I'm 100% for addressing it. Actually, I wanted to bring it up as well. So yeah, I think we really want to look at, parking on lawns and boat trailers and all of that. Really take a good look at that code. So yes, I'm 100% for it.
And I'm for it as well.
Okay, so there's certainly a majority that want to raise it, so we'll put that up for discussion.
I'll have it on the agenda in 2 weeks, and I'd encourage each of you to go to Municode and actually read the code so that you know what we already have, but I'll bring copies of that
Would you be willing to give us an email beforehand with
Sure.
with the
Because I
attachments so we
find
can look at
Muni
it?
code difficult for me to maneuver.
I'll pull it out and get it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, man.
And
Can I say something? I can tell you, having looked at it 100 times. There's the issues of where you can park a boat and a recreational vehicle is one parking issue. I presume that's already referred
That's
to.
part of, yes. Mhm.
Okay, you're not talking about parking in the street. There's about 20 different parking things.
No,
You're talking about parking something on your property?
yes, that's what
That's what
was
I thought
discussed
it'd
at
be
sea,
like.
like
Okay.
car parking on your grass and trailer parking and boat trip parking and all that sort of stuff.
we're talking about residential.
Yes.
Okay, just for clarification. Okay.
And one of the things that we haven't brought up is these lovely new African giant snails that is affecting some of Port Richey, like over by Washington. I know that they are finding like hundreds of them, and I don't know what. I'm trying to find, because I'm over on that side, so I'm trying to find out what to do, where to go, what to do, and I don't really know. I'm not, it's not really clear. Is that something that we could look at least share with our residents that live over there and can?
Yeah, the email I sent out, I talked to, actually had a conference call with Department of Agriculture Consumer Services or something.
Acronym, yeah.
And sent out a synopsis email after that conference call to council, mayor, staff. And Department of Ag intends to be here this week. We don't have a date and time set yet, but by be here, I mean City Hall, and we'll review. They're obviously working closely with Newport Richey
Yes.
and city staff there. So they did say their area of focus is on Massachusetts. They said a 200-meter arc around wherever they found the first snail. And so that's really where they're focused. They did say that there was, because of their regulation or their criteria, the way they determine a quarantine zone kind of has to lay along major roadways. And with our roadways the way they are around the river and in that particular neighborhood, they were apologizing for the quarantine being as big as it is. As I said in my email, their primary focus, their primary concern for residents within the quarantine zone, two things. One, landscaping material, particularly if it's rock that comes from South Florida. Now, they didn't say what constitutes South Florida, but landscaping materials. The other thing they're particularly concerned with is roofing tile. They made it very clear their intent is not to stop, slow down, impede construction, demolition, the normal business of building, remodeling, improving, beautifying was one of the words they used. But if somebody's is in need of engaging in that kind of activity, you need to bring in material. They need to, whoever that is needs to go to that Department of Agriculture website, which I put a link on our information that we posted, and give them a call and say, here's what we're doing. How do we go about that? Sounded like Department of Ag would send somebody out to, if you're bringing in a truckload of something, they want to inspect it and make sure there's no snails in it. So I tried to kind of synopsize that hour-long conversation that I had with the Department of Ag, but they were appreciative of our willingness to help and participate and support whatever we need to do. But it's kind of two messages. We got to get the snails. We don't want to stop what you're doing normally. So, we're going to have them look at some of our city facilities, look at the parks. If they bring their canine, they'll probably want to sniff the mulch and make sure we don't have snails on city property. So we'll do that when they get here. But the information that I got from them is posted all over the place, but I've conferred with Sal, but we've got that on our Facebook page and on our city website. So, and you go to the Department of Ag, search snails, you're going to get all of their information too. So both city staff here, Newport and their staff and county staff are all working closely with the Department of Ag.
Thank you very much. That's all.
That closes out our discussions. I know there was someone that signed up from the general public that wanted to speak. I'm going to invite Mr. Mueller to speak. Welcome, come on up.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I want to thank Mr. Dute for bringing up an item that I had on my agenda, and that's doing a postmortem on the fireworks. I think that shows leadership, and I appreciate that kind of activity here. We're moving in the right direction. In case you weren't aware, on the 15th, that's this Friday, running 10 days, Pasco County opens a 10-day scallop season. So there's going to be an influx of people, boats, waterways are going to be jammed. I just didn't hear anything. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And there again, I'm trying to make the community aware of things going on, and this group of body of citizens here as well, things that are important to everyone else. And I'd like to thank whoever got the monitors working. They're going to reflect hopefully some kind of an agenda. I appreciate that. I like to see my dollars working in a positive way. Also, at one point in time, we had a discussion about cutting mangroves, and I know they've been contracting outside parties to do that. And we had some discussion about getting somebody on staff certified to be able to do that and take that in-house, and that's a potential opportunity to save money. Wondering if there's been any progress made on that. The last item, do we have a Wi-Fi password yet? Thank you.
It's over here.
If you'd like, I can address Mangrove.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to us and I'm gonna ask you about it. That's all I think that we had for commentary from the general public. We're gonna move on to commentary from our council, and I'm gonna start the other direction now. Councilwoman Rodriguez, anything more?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
I had a couple things that I just wanted to kind of just touch base on. I was invited to meet on just a radio show, and it went with other officials from other cities, I think except for Hillsdale City. And it was just how's your city doing and what's going on in the city. So I talked a lot about our waterfront overlay district project, or Cody River Landing project, as that was moving forward. Everything else in the city was status quo, and really the people were, that were interviewing me in other talks were really talking about how nice the waterfront is. The scallop season coming up, the fishing has been fantastic. So it was a nice segment that I was able to do, and just really sit there and say a lot of positive things about our city. So it was a good experience. Nothing negative at all during the hour show came up. The other issue that I wanted to touch base on was already mentioned. There were a couple things. One of them were the mangroves. I was trying to figure out whether or not we could handle that in-house, and so that has been asked at some point, and I wanted to direct that question to Mr. Dute to see if there was any updates on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I asked staff to get me some information on that, and Sal has been diligent in doing that. We got an estimate of the cost to trim mangroves in, I think there were 4 different areas, but waterfront, Brasher, and a couple of other locations. Since coming to Florida, I've learned a lot about mangroves and the rules and the sensitivity and what we can do and what we can't do with mangroves. So we're required to use a licensed trimmer, and the estimate we got for those 4 locations, $30,000. We've used a contractor in the past to do that. I understand from staff who have been around a while. Years ago, that number was much less. Didn't take me long to figure out. I need to ask Sal to find out what it takes to get some of our folks certified, licensed, trained, because I also understand mangroves grow pretty rapidly, and you trim them, and 6 months later you have to trim them again. So that's $60,000 a year. Sal is looking into the cost, the time. I asked, what do we have to have special equipment? Do we have to have special licensure? So we're going to get those details sorted out. But I've got a number. If you want them trimmed, $30,000. And it's July, so January we'll need to do that again, and we'll just if we're writing a check, we just need to increase the budget 60 grand a year and we can have a contractor trim them. From my seat, that's a lot of money. We'll figure out if we can get our folks trained and find out what the cost and in time and money and how often would we have to trim them. So we're working on that answer, but the easy dollar figure, we can trim them up here in 30 days or so, but it'll be 30 grand.
Thank you. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was also mentioned, and that was we're coming into scallop season. There's a lot of excitement, not just within our city, but countywide. People are excited. That's a nice event that takes place within our city and our waters. And the question becomes, because we're a small city and we have limited resources, is whether or not that we've made any kind of arrangements with law enforcement to have any additional presence either at the boat ramp and or on the water. I know the fishing game will be out there and the county will be out there, but I didn't know if we had any plans for any kind of presence down there.
Yes, we've been in contact with FWC and the county, and we're working on a schedule between the three agencies in order to have the most coverage on the water as we can during that scallop season. So Sergeant Esposito's heading that up as he is in charge of the Marine unit. So he's working on that schedule. He's been working on it since about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and then the other follow-up question is whether or not it's probably the busiest I've ever seen our boat ramp is every scallop season, whether or not that we have any presence down there to make sure traffic's flowing, there's no issues at Nick's Park.
It'll have to be on-duty personnel. We'll just make it out. When they're not busy, they'll have to go down there. We'll keep track of. We also added some additional cameras in Nick's Park so that we have better coverage than what we had with the single camera. So if there's any issues at Nick's Park, we'll be able to see it, review it, and address it.
Thank you. I appreciate your diligence and being ahead of this. I do appreciate that. And that's all that I had. I was going to move on to Mr. McCleary first, and I think we addressed him, so.
Yeah, one item or
Okay.
one question I had actually was for the chief. Over the past weekend, July 4th weekend, I was driving around obviously a lot in waterfront district area, and I counted 3 people going wrong way in the one way, literally right in front of me. Is there any way that we could install a camera or something pointed, what I guess would be eastbound, opposite the flow of the one way, just to see if we can start ticketing these people? Is that feasible, or do we have to have people on site to physically catch them?
I know the answer to that.
We do actually ticket a lot of people and give warnings there, but we just can't be there 24/7 to address that one particular issue. Whether putting a camera up or not, I'm sure you can put a camera up any way you want, but whether it's going to be cost effective or not, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
You want to answer the question there?
Yeah, Todd, there's due process issues trying to issue tickets off of a camera, but I can tell you that we do write a lot of tickets because in my career, I'm up at the courthouse for a lot of the traffic dockets for things independent of the city, and I see a lot of our officers there on these types of tickets. So I know they're writing them because I see them.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm definitely sure. Yeah, I'm 100% sure we're writing tickets and that sort of thing. I was just surprised how many are still doing it, even after I know the efforts that the police have made for the city. And I just thought, it is a camera viable solution, but I guess it's more just training and enforcement.
Thanks. Did you have anything else, or?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Kinson.
I want to jump back on to the scallop season that Mr. Mueller brought up, and a lot of talk in the community about it. I'm going to ask if we could do this, but if the city could allow some overtime for our officers, especially this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following weekend, Saturday, Sunday, more so at having that presence at Nick Park, and then any joint work with Newport Richie, having an officer, one of our Marine Patrol officers assigned with them if they're willing to have that joint coverage. I've just been hearing a lot of talk on it, and I think it may be quite greater than what we would expect. So scallop season, just seeing if the city's willing to be very proactive and offer some overtime to the officers to have a more of a permanent presence on the waterfront. The other one with the mangroves, which I like, just a thought, I don't know how legal it is, Jim, but there's quite a few areas, and I know in my community, we hire a company to come in to trim ours. If we bring it in-house to the city, could the city rent out our folks to those residents that have mangroves at their residence? But in Sand Pebble, we got a lot of mangroves all around, and a couple, 3 times a year, we're always having it trimmed. And we have to pay one way or another, but to defer some of the costs that the city could possibly pass on if they're not busy to the citizens. Just sharing that. I don't know the legality, but
Yeah, I guess the short answer is municipality cannot get into competing with businesses. We can't sell milk, we can't sell cars, nor can we sell services like fixed cars or. Do you see what I'm saying? What you want to do is rent out one of our employees and compete with other people that are in the mangrove cutting business, right? Those are not things that's a municipal purpose that we can get into doing that. So if we're going to do it, that'd be one thing, but we can't get into the business of charging people to cut their mangroves. Well, do you see the difference?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I do.
Right. We'd be
But I'm
getting
just
into.
wondering if there's some room.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, there may be a way that, first of all, I don't know if we're the city that we can license one of the people to do it here. I don't know what the extent of that license is, whether we can have someone licensed to do that here. I suspect we can. I know Mr. O'Neill was the city manager, had that license. I don't think he did it for us, but I know he had it. So, before we do that, we can check that out. But we're not going to be able to make money off of it, and I understand what you're doing is trying to save the citizens money, but we could do that by buying milk too, you know what I mean?
Well,
right? I mean, you got to think of that.
Well, can I ask in a different format? I know that for example, we pick up palm fronds for folks, whether or not we trim mangroves, not just.
You could do that all day long. That's the distinction. We want to go out there and you want to decide that the city's going to trim mangroves, you know what I mean? It's going to do it on private property. You better have something that's, fair to all. But I mean, if you want to trim mangroves on the public things, that's fine. But to rent it out is a different story.
Well, I guess where I'm going is a lot of the places that people privately pay to trim mangroves, I think, are kind of on easements that would be city easements too, at times on the waterfront, would it not?
I'm not sure I know of any like that, but
Okay.
they're either our easement and then we trim them or they're not.
Okay. So, yeah, that was a follow-up question I had. I didn't mean to interrupt you. By the way, I apologize. It's vice mayor, not councilman, so.
You're forgiven.
Okay. Did you have anything else before we
Nothing
move on? Okay. At this time, we're going to touch on comments from boards and committees. I know that we've already touched on CNC. Are there any other general comments or anyone that wants to speak? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? This time we're going to move on to council business, and this is the approval of stormwater rate study. And I'm going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After considerable investigation, we have the opportunity to piggyback a contract from the city of Palm Bay for the creation of a stormwater rate study by Stantec. Price is $24,250. They're charging us the same base rate that they charged our piggyback city of Palm Bay. The service that Stantec has proposed for the price of $24,250, they would put together a 10-year projection of revenue sufficiency. So give us some idea of what do we need to collect over the next 10 years. They'll do a comparison of our neighboring municipalities and stormwater entities so that we have some idea of where we are in comparison to other municipalities in our neighborhood. They'll conduct a number of staff engagement activities. That's information gathering from our staff. What do we do? How often do we clean a swale? How often do we take sludge out of the pipe? That kind of thing. Those are key inputs and assumptions that they then use to put together their report and their recommendations to the city. They'll put together a financial schedule with a program management plan that'll identify the required annual increases if the city intends to meet the plan. Their performance period is 120 days, so from the point we give them a notice to proceed, they'll have it completed in 120 days. Their plan does include the necessary capital improvements. They'll do a revenue sufficiency analysis. They'll also analyze what reserves should we have in place over time to make sure that we can handle the ups and downs of managing our stormwater system. I know it's been years and years, going on close to 15, maybe close to 20 years since the initial rate was put into effect. And to not look at a rate for 15 years means it's time. If you talk to Rachel in finance, she'll tell you about revenues and expenditures, and just the record keeping for stormwater has increased exponentially. Literally, Richie weighs the trash that we take out of a storm swale, records the weight, records the volume, and sends in a report to DEP to say we took X number of pounds out of the swale on Bay Boulevard. Every time he washes the truck, that has to be recorded. And so just the paperwork is exponentially more voluminous than what it was 15 years ago. So at our current rate, we don't generate enough revenue to meet the expenditures. So that's why this one is up first. And to help understand, if I had a blank check, I'd love to do all of them all at once, get them all done. That was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000 to $150,000. So we've got, I think the line item is about $30,000 budgeted for it, and $24,250 gets me under that. So we'll get water and sewer next, but stormwater is the priority. The price is obviously more than I want to pay, but no other company had a number even close. This allows us to piggyback off of another city. They did bid it. So with that, staff strongly is encouraging a motion to approve the funding of a stormwater rate study by Stantec Professional Consulting Services.
If I may, can we open this for discussion and or motion? Or for discussion first, if that's okay with the council?
Yes.
This is an issue, certainly the needs there. I think I've mentioned it probably for the last 2 years that this really needs to be looked at and done. The issue that I have with this particular bid is it's not a bid, it's just one company that gave a quote. We have an approved list, if I'm not mistaken, within the city that has a bunch of companies that would be qualified to do this without even having to piggyback. And my issue is, I think that we should be looking at 3, 4, 5 quotes from some of these different companies, particularly the pre-approved ones where we don't even have to piggyback. They're just pre-approved and we can just agree to them. But I'm not comfortable, nor would I be willing to approve just one company that gives a quote off of a piggyback that's not really, it looks like it's kind of some obscure piggyback off of some city that's not related in any way, but it's, it's one of those that, where did Syntec come from versus any other of our approved providers? So I have a lot of concerns here and questions, but if you're going to go with Syntec, and that's what the board wants to do, I prefer to look at it with some comparable bids from particularly pre-approved businesses or companies that we've worked with in the past that would be able to not even have to piggyback, to be able to just give us a quote and be able to go that way. So I would not be in favor of this particular item. I think it needs to be done. I just don't like having one option to vote on in terms of price and which company we're going to use. So that having been said, that's my issue. I'd prefer to have it brought back with other quotes from other vendors that are already pre-approved on our list that we've looked at or used in the past. And I'll open it for discussion and or motion with the rest of the board.
I like the idea of getting a couple other quotes as well.
That was my concern. Everything that's been brought to us, we've always had 2 or 3 quotes, and living in Florida, there's got to be more than one company that does this. And I did not know there were, I just assumed there had to be a slew of companies that did it. So, and look, historically looking at all the bids, we've had like $10,000 difference in some of these bids, and, the cheapest one was the best, and I would like to get more bids as well.
And did we want to, because this was an action item, so is there a motion and or by consensus, do we want to just table this until or set this off for another?
I would like to table it until we get more bids, if that's how we do that.
I would too, table it.
I'm going to keep this bid here. This might be the best one, and this might be the one we go with. But I would like to get other bids to compare it to.
And Mr. McClary, you're here virtually. Was there any commentary on this particular item?
Actually, I have to abstain from this item. I've done work with Stantec in my professional life, I've awarded them contracts, et cetera, so I have to, in all honesty, abstain.
Well, that presents a different issue too. If there's a bunch of other providers, why wouldn't we pick one that we're dealing with at arm's length from the entire board? So to me, it makes sense to pick a company if it's comparable in price that doesn't have any connection or ties to any of us sitting up here. And that's just my opinion. So yeah, I think we should get some more bids.
I'm just curious what else is out there, just get an idea.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's get this done as quickly as we can, though. I know that it's been a pressing issue.
It does need to be done for sure, yes.
All right, we're going to move on to item 4 then. Yes. Right, there's no motion or vote, so.
Well, there was a motion with Mr. Duke talking, and we just have a discussion.
But that was general commentary. We're in council. So I don't really want to open that up for general commentary from the public until we have a vote, until we have a motion, a second, and we're going to vote on it. Then I'll open it up. But until then, I think we'll close it.
Tabling this, that's my understanding.
And we'll renotice it.
In line with Robert's rules of order.
Most of the meetings I've been, that's how it works. County meetings too.
We just had discussion with you guys.
I answer council questions. Council have a question? Council have a question?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the approval for Penny for Pasco interlocal agreement. That's going to be Mr. Dude for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The interlocal agreement from Pasco County is in your packet. Penny for Pasco is a, stand for Mr. Matthews' corrections if I get beyond, but this is a state legislated program that basically funds sales, direct sales tax revenues to the county, the school board, and the municipalities within Pasco County. It goes in front of the voters this fall. The county has an obligation to have interlocal agreements in place, and so this is basically a renewal of the interlocal agreement that you had in place before. Anything Mr. Matthew may want to fill in the blanks for me, I'd more than welcome that.
Thank you. Yes, this is the interlocal agreement which has been presented to us by the county. The county, the Penny for Pasco. I presume everybody understands what that is, right? It's an extra penny of sales tax we pay in Pasco. Pasco County, it's a local option. That means that the county doesn't have to charge this, but they go out and they put it to referendum. This will be on November's ballot. If it does pass, we did this 10 years ago, signed almost the identical, I have both of them 10 years ago. And it passed then. From everything I'm reading, it looks like it's going to pass, but the county's got a full court press to do it. We get about 500,000. Our calculations, the county gets about 45 million, slightly more than us, and which is 45%. And the school district now gets a similar amount, and I think that's right, because we get 1.5%, about 0.67%, John, is that what we're up?
Yeah.
A little more than half of 1%. And what happens is, and I only state this because I seem to say 4 or 5 times a year, but don't think anybody believes me, that we get slightly more than 1/2 of 1% of all those pennies, that 1% that's collected. Now, whether we have 20 Walmarts or and no Walmarts, or nobody ever sells one thing in this city, we get the same amount of money. Okay, so everybody understands that, right? That's the way it works. So, looking at the agreements here, kind of have to pass this. The county had a slight snafu, and that everyone else has kind of looked at it and said it's okay. We're the last ones. It kind of wasn't their fault, really. But the most important thing is you'll see the percentages on the 3rd page, and you'll see that Fort Ritchie gets 0.64%. We actually chatted a little bit, see how there was a good portion of St. Leo that was de-annexed, and apparently I think right after it was de-annexed a couple of years ago, you might have read that in the paper, I presume they built or had student housing where they could live there, so that increased their percentage up. But and we're just checking the numbers. It's all done in the census. We wanted to make sure it's right. We don't have to spend a lot of time checking it. And even if we tripled our amount, it's not going to change the numbers. Census changes or some major things happen this year, you can get together and agree to change these allocations. It's never happened before, so I will also be bringing to you, I'll probably bring it for the next meeting, a resolution which states that we will abide by the state statute, and I'll make it extremely broad, that we can use it for the most broadest language, and it's generally capital projects 5 years or longer, right? Am I getting that right? Okay. And I'll bring that to you at the next meeting, so the county will need that on file. I'll answer any questions, but it's passed last time, and I suspect it'll pass, and biggest problem was we have to budget for it. That's kind of your problem, and it's a good number, right? 450, it's about 450,000. Yeah. And you're not going to know the answer to that until after the budget's set. Okay. So we're just looking for a motion to pass it. Well, it'll be the exact same thing as you can see the other 5 cities. They kind of need this quick because they have to put ads in the paper, and they're running out of time.
Motion to approve the pending Pasco interlocal agreement.
Second.
Any need for any discussion? Hearing none, anyone want to comment from the general public on this particular item? Seeing no hands, at this time, let's put it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we're going to item 5, which is the Clark Moody Boulevard update, and that's going to be Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have received from Mr. Matthew his written legal opinion after considerable research both on his part and the title company to review all the legal descriptions, all the plats of the properties on Clark Moody. And again, I would defer to Mr. Matthew for any additional explanation, but would request a motion to acknowledge Clark Moody as a private drive with no city obligation.
I'm not looking for a motion, okay? If you are, I'm not sure what you're looking for the motion for, unless, I thought what council wanted to know is, do you have to pay this or can you pay this, something like that.
It's a discussion item.
Okay, are we on the same page? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep this extremely simple. Back in April, I said that, because it's very important as people are there, it's a serious legal matter, and it spent a considerable amount of time, and then I tried to frame it. But the bottom line is, for everything I could see, there was no plat there. Streets were created by plats. Okay. Okay, somebody comes in, makes a development, and they leave the space there for streets. Now, they either get dedicated, meaning we own the streets, or they become private streets. Okay, there's no plat there at all. All the property lines go to the middle. There's ingress and egress. There's easements in each one of these deeds. So that's a street that goes like this, dumps off onto this street, which I believe is Pine Hill, and I guess that would be Leo Kid. And the deeds go to the middle. There's ingress and egress easements in them, as well as the Clamo or something industrial park. That's exactly what this looks like. It was an industrial park as opposed to an area that has a private street. Having said all of that, there's a state law that says if a city, takes care of something as a street after it could be presumed to have been dedicated. However, here it would be somewhat difficult because the property lines go to the middle. If you wanted to do that, my suggestion is if you wanted to make it your street, that you would get a legal description of the entire street. We'd file it with the court. We'd advertise it, things like that, and then wait a certain amount of time if you file objections if you wanted it to be a street. But as a practical matter, now you do not have to pay, in my opinion. It's not black and white things, but it was set up as an industrial park, I presume, but there's no street there. There's no dedication there. And what took so long is Mr. Dude and the city spent a considerable amount of time looking for any records. We have no records. We created that street, did that street, There's some cold patching, correct me, Mr. Dude, you probably know more about this. You really want to know at this point. We didn't make, it was work records, give us any job orders. We just, if we had it in the back of the truck, went there and filled the hole with what we had left. And that's only done, and that's just from the memory of certain people. So we don't have one document. Now, I'm sure we did those things, but we don't have any documents. We've never budgeted for it or anything like that. So if council, at this point in time, has no legal duty to pave that street or repair that street or anything else, if council wants to, I recommend that you go the full way and make a decision one way or the other. That doesn't mean you can't throw cold patch in there unless somebody complains, because you're technically doing it on their property.
Is it fair to say that this is discretionary? We can take this road and maintain it, or we can leave it?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. The easier path, I think, legally, if you don't do anything, that would be easier. But if you're going to say, and you want to presume it's your street, then it's like, people own this property. Okay, then we need to do it the right way. Go on notice, see if they want to object. I presume they wouldn't. You'd be fixing the street. I don't think they use it for anything but the street.
We're the ones that requested that we do this, so.
I'm aware. So, I got that, yeah. So I guess so in that sense, as a practical matter, you're absolutely correct. It's discretionary.
So the question I have for first responder, who services this area for police and fire?
I'd have to defer to police and fire. Yeah, presumably you treat it like any other street, right, Chief Robinson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that question was brought up by some of the property owners and employees. All the same city services are going to occur. We're going to do code enforcement. If PD has a call in that, they're going to go do just what they do now. If there's a fire, we'll pull the hose in and put it out. And that's no different than if we, drove into somebody's backyard to provide city services. We would continue to do that. So it doesn't, because it's private property, doesn't suspend the provision of city services.
And they're taxing. Does the city get any of their own property tax?
Same, just any other property tax, no different than any other parcels in the city. It goes, when you say property tax?
Yeah.
Each one of these buildings, they're little parcels, they're parcels, just like houses. The only difference between that and a house that's on a street is their property line goes right to the middle of the street. So we get taxes from each one of them, depending on the assessed value. Now, if your question, they're paying the same taxes per assessed value, they're not getting a service, a certain service in every go.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm trying to help you here, yeah, with the question. Yes, it's that way in a million different ways. Some people, they're on a private road. Some people live on private roads that go down there, and doesn't mean the police aren't there if they have an emergency. It doesn't mean the police aren't going to drive down the middle of that and somebody calls 911. They're certainly not going to stop over a legal kid and run in. And it's just like they have certain rights. Fire's going anyway. Okay, but do they patrol it? You know, if they're patrolling it, and it's kind of like a dirt road or something, and it's just like a private drive that they're patrolling it, and no one says anything about that, I presume they'll continue to patrol it. But if they put a gate on both ends of it, made it an industrial park, we wouldn't any more than patrol it if Walmart didn't want us to patrol it. Their parking lot. Does that help with the analysis?
But if we decide that we want to dedicate this road and maintain it, then they can't put a gate across it, and we can come in.
That's correct. That's why you'd have to do it the right way. That's right.
Okay.
In other words, you'd have to file it, put them on notice. You know, so because remember what's going to happen here is eventually it's a road there, and you file that of record when any one of these property holders sells that property. That's going to come up on record. Now they own less property. That may enhance the value. I don't know. Does that help at all?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez, anything on this discussion wise?
I don't have anything, no.
Councilman McCleary, do you have an opinion on this one way or the other?
My opinion is that we let it remain a private drive, because if we start taking over the maintenance of private drives, I can think of several other private drives in the city that would start that slippery slope of, well, why don't you take over mine and keep going down that path. So I think from your perspective, we've identified that we have no obligation and we should remain as such.
That's a good point.
So I've thought of that issue too, and I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. But it's a small city, and you want to make sure you don't have blight. You want to make sure you get emergency vehicles in and out. One of the ways to do that is just maintain all the roads. So I was kind of along the thought process of the vice mayor in the sense that, I think there's some residences back there, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if that's the only way to get to them. But I think if there's residences back there, I'd be more inclined to want to maintain that road for the city because of the residences. If it's industrial only and there's only businesses and they're making money, then let them fix their own road if it's just businesses. So
We're talking about Clark Moody.
right there,
Clark Moody is an industrial street that makes a turn. You're referring to the residences that are on Leo Kidd. That's not what I'm.
there's Leo Kidd that is down there too, and there's some houses down there. I think looking at a map, there were 3 or 4 residences, and I wasn't
But
sure.
the Leo Kidd's not part of this.
So can you get to those residences, because we already maintain
Just by going down Leo Kidd from Pine Hill.
But there's like an elbow there, and then behind the industrial, there were 3 or 4 houses that looked like
That's
they
the
were.
end of Leo Kidd,
Okay.
isn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, what happens is, when you're going down, you're coming from Ridge Road and you go down Leo Kidd, you come to Pine Hill, okay? You go a little further down Leo Kidd, which would be south. On the left is the beginning of Clark Moody, which goes around and makes a kind of left-hand turn and comes back to Pine Hill. Those are all industrial buildings.
Okay.
I don't think there's any houses in there. The houses I think you're referring to are the ones on Leo Kidd before you get to the brush pile. Right, Chief? You probably know, right?
Because I just wanted to make sure that we could get emergency vehicles back to the homes back there. And that was one of the concerns that I had.
I pulled up the map.
Yeah, in other words, this is
Leo Kidd goes straight.
this is Leo Kidd here, and these are where the houses are. This is the industrial park here.
Oh, I see.
You understand what I mean?
So this is not really an action item. Are we looking for a vote, or are we going to?
I think when this came up is because you were setting monies, the council was setting monies aside to determine if they want to use some of the ARP money for
That's correct.
doing the various streets. And a couple of the streets I think you were starting to put on a list, Mr. Dude. I don't want to put words in your
Yes, sir.
mouth. And this was one of them. And Vice Mayor brought up that I don't think that's a street. That's what started the conversation.
So the question is, can we? Because we've already. Did we vote on that? I guess that's probably.
No, that's what stopped the vote was.
Okay.
We did not.
So can we put it on the next council to vote on whether or not we want to do other roads other than Clark Moody? Because that clarifies, I think.
Yes.
Unless, Vice Mayor, did you have an opinion on this one way or the other before we move on? But it sounds like there's already a couple votes on the nay on this.
Let's table this for the time being, is what I'm recommending, so we can look a little further into this. I just, Has those owners approached us, requesting this? I've never seen anything, this was brought up as a discussion a while ago, but has the owners collectively approached the city for this assistance?
They've come here for the meetings and asked us to repave the road. And I know that was back when Will and Jenny were on the dais, and we did it the year prior because we didn't have any money in the budget for particular roads. Now we have ARPA money that we can expend, and the question is, we don't have an obligation to do this, but those folks have asked us. But they were business owners, they weren't residents, to clarify. And whether or not we want to do the road, I think is discretionary. But I think what we should do is put the other roads that we were talking about on. And then the question today is whether or not we want to revisit Clark and Moody when we do the other roads again. But
You want to see the map? Want to see this, Tom? Okay.
You're doing a survey right now, the roads, aren't you? Everyone.
Yes.
If you're going around, you should, right? You can't do any of that till you
Yeah,
get
we're
that
doing a
back.
survey.
That's why you're paying to have
Right,
that
so
done.
why don't we wait for that survey to be completed?
That's why you did it.
okay,
Survey is in process.
Right.
okay.
The-
So we'll table it until the survey's done and then bring everything back.
I like that.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. McClary? All right.
Good, thank you.
All right, perfect. We're going to move on then to the presentation of our annual audit. And I'm going to pass that over to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll quickly defer to our finance director, Rachel Goslin. I believe we have our auditor on the phone line, and the report is in front of us.
Yes, so Jeffrey Jones is an audit manager at the EFPR Group. They're the audit company that audits our financials. So he's going to give you an overview of the financial audit for fiscal year 2021. And he also provided a handout for you as well.
Hello, everyone. So if you take a look at the handout, we kind of put some highlighted notes in there that we want to be able to go through. Just, as Rachel said, just an overview and summary of the audit. So if we start at the top, you can see we talked about the financial statements and audit reports have already been reviewed by city management. The results of the audit ended up with an unmodified, which is also called a unqualified or clean opinion, and they have been issued on your financial statements. The unmodified opinion is the best opinion that we can give in the auditing profession. We noted that there was no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the city's internal controls or financial reporting, or in the city's compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contract and grants agreements. Also, we did not note any non-compliance with which we feel could have a direct or material effect on the financial statements. Now, we're always happy to say that management was able to provide us everything that we asked for in a very timely manner and was very cooperative throughout the entire audit process. Then as we look at the actual citywide or the full accrual level, the governmental activities, their revenue exceeded the expenses by about 1.2 million this year, while your business type activities, the revenue exceeded your expenses by about $500,000. Now, the governmental activities revenue increased about 0.9 million, while the business type activities, the revenue increased about 0.2 million. Also, when looking at the governmental activities, your expenses ended up decreasing about 0.3 million, while the business type activities decreased also by about the 0.3 million. All in all, this resulted in the net position as of September 30, 2021 of 6.8 million. And 9.8 million, we're looking at both governmental and business type activities. As we move into the governmental fund balances, we saw that they increased by about 0.4 million, up to a new total of 5.3 million as of September 30th. Also, when looking at the general fund, there ends up being an increase in the general fund's fund balance of about 0.7 million. And below, we tossed in a little chart here just to kind of summarize what your fund balance classifications were at the end of the year, as well as comparing them to last year. So the first one that I have broken out here is your non-spendable fund balance. So this is fund balance where you've already spent cash and spent earmarks for a specific purpose. So here we talk about there being a offset here for your prepaid expenses. Next, we go down into your restricted fund balance. Now, this is your fund balance has been restricted for a specific purpose. Here we're showing for police, about 209,000 this year, where capital projects was 669,000 this year. The next area is your committed fund balance, which is items earmarked for your parkland improvements, 25,000, which is the same balance as last year. And then the remaining fund balance sits in your unassigned. This is basically what's left over. This is where your net income rolls into. It's just your kind of free cash flow there. And that's the 1.7 million. All in all, leading to a fund balance of 2.6 million, which, as you can see here, is up from last year about $742,000. So, this is a really brief overview. And then if I wanted to kind of answer any questions anybody might have.
So the question that I had is originally when I was looking at our expenditures versus what we were budgeted, it was by percentage. In other words, if you reach 100% money spent, then you're on budget for the end. But what was happening is they weren't including the money that we set aside for reserves. So what I was trying to figure out is if we follow our current pace where we're at now, we finish, because I think we had either $400,000 or $500,000 that we budgeted to go into reserves at the end of the year, boosting our reserves, I think, from somewhere around 1.2 to 1.6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken.
So currently we're at 1.7
Okay.
for the general fund.
And so if we stay on pace where we're at now, is that the projection is a 1.7? I guess that's what I was trying to figure out.
I don't know if he'll know our current budget, but we're looking at about a $350,000 surplus to add. I'm just estimating some, costs with fuel and things like that, unless we use ARPA funds to help with that. So that would bring us to about maybe $2 million in our unassigned fund balance. So currently this 1.7, our annual budget is about 6.5, so that brings us to about 25% in reserve, which is a good percentage. I think that's what our policy stated, between 25 to 30% in reserves.
And I have, for some reason, I have kind of trouble hearing you. There's an echo from your corner. Were you able to hear?
No, I can't.
So, and I hate to do this to you, but would you be willing to go to the podium so we can hear you?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for doing that for us.
Is this mic on still? Okay. Yeah, so if you look at the unassigned fund balance, is this better? The 1.7? So that's our current general fund unassigned fund balance. So we're looking this year at, I'm going to estimate $350,000 surplus. So if you add that to our unassigned, we'll be at about $2 million. So that 1.7 is already about 25% of our annual budget. So we are on track according to our fund balance policy.
So I guess projections by the end of the year, I think when we started the year, we were right around 1.2 in reserves for our general fund.
Yeah, we were at this 1,021,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that we were shooting to have, in terms of budget-wise, we were trying to finish with 1.4 to 1.5 million.
Correct. And so fiscal year 2021, we ended with 1.7 million in our unassigned fund balance, not assigned for no restrictions.
So we wound up with more money in reserves than we had planned for.
Yeah, a little bit more than we estimated originally, so we're in a good spot.
And that's if we follow the projections.
Correct.
How did that happen?
I don't have everything in front of me right now. Perhaps, Jeff, do you have any analysis on the revenues?
Can I give an
Yeah,
example?
when I'm taking a look at your budget to actual schedules and the financial statements, I can see that overall your revenue is actually really close on pace. You're within your budgeted revenue by about $20,000. What ended up actually being the coming in under was your expenses, where the general government support line ended up being of $480,000 under your anticipated budget. So it's kind of more the underspending of some expenses throughout the year is what helped boost you up to that 1.7.
And keep in mind, I did not prepare that budget FY 2020. So.
And the question that I have and the concern is whether or not these expenses are all going to happen at the very end of the year to where it just kind of blows our budget out. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't anticipate that. I mean, the majority of our expenses are salaries, and we're about 80% spent right now with salaries, so we're on track there.
I guess the concern is there any way to kind of figure out where that money is that we're gonna have extra, what we didn't spend it on that we were supposed to, so we can at least understand why we're not on track going the other direction, which is, there's no complaints there. I just want to know how that happened or why that happened.
Yeah, I can give you an analysis of that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I did not prepare the FY 2020 budget, so, I don't understand exactly what they anticipated in spending in different areas, but clearly we underspent, so.
Is there something we're supposed to have paid and we did, and I'm concerned there too?
Yeah. No, I mean, we make sure everything's paid on time and as should be, so. Yeah, maybe they had other plans in mind, projects and things that, they just didn't carry out, I don't know. But I can definitely provide you with an analysis of exactly where that excess was.
And so that, we'll maybe have that analysis right going into budget season, so we can look at that and have some more information coming into the upcoming budget.
Yes.
Mr. McCleary, did you have anything?
I agree. I'd never complained with a budget surplus, but it would be nice to know what we didn't spend on.
Thank you, and I apologize to the auditor for ambushing you with that question.
No, you're fine.
Were there any other questions or commentary from the board?
No, thank you.
Mr. McCleary, I know you're here virtually as well. Did you have anything else for our auditor?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything? No, sir. All right, with that, I think that
You don't need a vote.
that closes that. That's just so that closes that item out. And I think we have the auditor for the next meeting as well, do we not?
Yes.
So, okay, so thank you, and we'll get back to you again real soon when we get to our next meeting.
Yeah, but tell them how long.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
10 minutes, you want to tell them?
I think,
How long should tell them? 10, 15 minutes, you'll be ready again? He's first item on the
Yeah,
next agenda.
he's still connected, so he's gonna listen in.
Okay. All right, oh, okay, great.
and that moves us to old business, and I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Dude. There's a couple items here, and then we'll turn it over to the board. Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see in the notes, and has been noted by Mr. Rogers and others, Public Works did get the yield sign cleaned out. We'll try to keep an eye on that, make sure that that stays clear. And as Mr. Kinsella mentioned, we've done some cleanup on the Washington Street project. The cleanup we've done has been on our side, on public property, and that's been our Public Works folks getting out there and taking care of our side of the line. Building and code enforcement have made contact with the property owner and have agreement on his side to address the issues that are on his side of the property line. So I don't know that he moves as fast as my guys do, but he's aware, and hopefully we'll see some more progress there.
Any other commentary on business to come before the board or council?
No.
Vice Mayor, Councilwoman,
No, thank you.
Councilman McCleary?
The only item I have is related to the upgrade of the microphone system. This is actually the first time I've been on virtually and listened to the meeting virtually since the new system was installed. And I'd like to say it's a vast improvement and actually very enjoyable and very clear. I was able to hear everybody and there wasn't any issues. So kudos again to everyone who put this new system together.
Thank you. And then the only other item that I had, since we were on the Washington Street, I know that there was an approved, I think, POD building development that was to go in there. And there hasn't been a whole lot of activity. Is there any updates there? From the city's end?
Not from the city's end. We're still awaiting the completion of the engineering study on the sewer system and make multiple requests for a delivery date on that. We don't have one yet. So, but on our side, that's our next step. I know there's been some construction work on the site. Building officials have been actively engaged with the property owner developer, and so Rob has been staying on top of that.
Very well. And then I believe that's all I had for old business. So with that, looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.